How's it going, Laser Bruce? Up, Bobby Sixkilla, and welcome to a new series we're going to be doing on a game called Shinrai, Broken Beyond Despair. Now, this is probably, obviously looking at it, a murder mystery visual novel with multiple endings and branching paths and all of that sort of jazz. So I'm excited to get into it. It is not a new release, however. I think it came out in 2016, officially. But it looks good, so I'm down to give it a go. Hopefully you guys are interested as well. It looked like it sold okay at the time, so I don't know. It's not expensive, but it's not cheap either for what it is. They reckon it's about 8 to 10 hours playtime. We'll see. Yes, of course. Obligatory. Alright, here we go. The black cat and the red bird. How mysterious. As I closed my eyes, a deep sigh escaped my lips. It took quite some time to do this, but after a bit of hesitation, I finally managed to turn around and step in front of her. I didn't want to do this. I really didn't want to. I already knew I was going to regret it, so why? Why was I still doing this? Was it simple curiosity? Or the futile hope that it wasn't going to be that bad? Whatever the case, I just wanted to get this whole thing over with. So without further ado, I opened my eyes. Just a few inches away from me. It's a cat lady. There she was. A short, somewhat fragile-looking girl with light blonde hair and thick, black-rimmed glasses framing her boring grey eyes. Harsh. I took a moment to carefully examine her from top to toe. When my eyes eventually met with hers again, we kept standing there wordlessly and motionlessly, staring at each other for what felt like an awkward eternity. Her expression was completely empty and didn't give any insight into her thoughts. From the lifeless indifference lingering on her face, no one would have been able to guess what was going on inside her head. No one but me. I knew all too well what she was thinking right now. In fact, I knew this person better than anyone else in this world, even though at this very moment I truly wish I didn't. I mean, she looked so incredibly ridiculous. Just standing next to her would have made anyone cringe in embarrassment. That fuzzy sweater with the long baggy sleeves, the almost criminally short skirt, the hole-covered tights choking her thin legs. It was truly an outrageous get-up. However, even worse than the clothes themselves were the appalling accessories, like that silly bell in her chest, the furry gloves with the long plastic claws, or the fluffy tail that was glued to her almost non-existent butt. At last, but not least, the tiny ears which were attached to her headband, and finally completed the unbelievably lame kitty costume. Seriously, who in their right mind would run around like this? Unless they wanted to be turned into the laughingstock of the town. But there was no need to say a word about it. By now the indifference on her face had transformed into utter disgust. She knew herself how ridiculous it was, yet her expression clearly showed that she was anything but happy to wear this humiliating abomination of a costume. Naturally, this begged the question. Why was she wearing it then? The answer was simple. It was a certain someone's fault. A certain someone who had asked her to wear it. Someone who had been so incredibly persistent about it that she had ultimately given in to that preposterous request, just like she always did, but not anymore. And to make that clear beyond a doubt, she raised her voice and yelled as loud as she could. Forget it. Frustrated, I turned away from the mirror, took off the stupid gloves and the fuzzy sweater and threw everything right into the certain someone's devilishly gritting face. So she was the one talking. Hey, what are you doing? I'm definitely not going to wear this. But why? Do you even have to ask? I must have lost my mind to let you talk me into trying this on. Just the idea of me running around in this is as ludicrous as the outfit itself. Oh, come on. Don't be like that. Shinpuku Rihatsu, 1975, 35. Likes everything fluffy, shopping, teasing people. Rihatsu Shinpuku, my mother. Oh, unfortunately, she'd bugged me the entire day about trying this outfit on, till I've been so frustrated that I simply agreed to it, even though I really should have learned my lesson by now. It was always the same with her. And she wasn't working as a hairstylist or composing music for video games. She dedicated her life to the sole purpose of harassing me, her one and only daughter. Never passing up on an opportunity to tease or embarrass me, especially in front of others. Of course, she always denied these claims, assuring me that she didn't try to humiliate me. However, It was kind of hard to believe when big mischievous smiles spread across her lips like that. Put it on again. It's not that bad. You look so incredibly cute in it, I could literally hug you to death. I don't want to be hugged to death though. I also don't want to disgrace myself in front of my classmates by wearing this grotesque thing. Oh, you're exaggerating. No, I'm not. This is just... It's what? Totally unacceptable. I told you I wouldn't wear any silly costumes, but I certainly won't take a single step outside in this atrocity. Yeah, totally exaggerating. I thought you were required to wear a costume. There's a big difference between a costume and a degrading piece of textile trash. Besides, wearing a costume is not required. They said I should if possible, but it's not mandatory. Come on, don't be such a killjoy. I bet everyone else is going to wear a costume. Do you have to be the only one to march into a different drum again? What the others are doing is irrelevant to me. If they jump off a cliff, I certainly won't follow them. Or would you want me to do that too? Oh, you. Like always, it's impossible to argue with you. Well, what'd you expect? Seriously, a 14-year-old middle schooler, I was long out of that age where I enjoyed this kind of childish nonsense. It was bad enough that I'd allowed myself to be persuaded into taking part in this event. However, wearing this horrendous costume on top of it was definitely going too far. You're always such a party pooper. Here, put it on. It'll be fun. For the others. When they're laughing at me. Nah, that's not true. You look cute. Not ridiculous. She'd been trying to hide it the whole time, but her quivering lip finally gave way to the truth. Not able to hold it in any longer, she burst into loud, almost maniacal laughter. Your expression is priceless. At least someone's having fun here. Oh yes, I'm having a blast. Come on, put it on again. No, I should have known better than to try it on even once. While she kept laughing, I took off the rest of these disturbing clothes, which couldn't even be deemed acceptable as a moth meal, and threw them in the garbage bin. Then I opened my closet and grabbed something I was actually able to feel comfortable in. Alright, much better. Much more boring. Don't look at me like that. That's what I get for merely trying to help you? Help me! You just wanted to get a good laugh out of this, admit it. Who knows? And while she was still giggling to herself and I was buttoning up my cardigan... Oh, that's gotta be Noburo. I'll go open the door. Should I give you the cat costume? You can take it with you, just in case you change your mind and... No. Okay. Snorting, she zoomed out of my room and continued laughing as she went downstairs. This woman. Nothing in the world seemed to offer her more amusement than her own daughter's misery. Just why had I, of all people, been punished with a mother like that? Oh well, there's no point getting riled up again. Besides, if Noburo was here, I had to hurry so I wouldn't keep her waiting. With that in mind, I picked up the pace a little, and once I was ready, quickly hopped down the stairs. My friend was already standing in the doorway, waiting for me. The moment our eyes met, she greeted me with her trademark salute. That's random. Ah, there she is. Yo, Raiko-chan. Hi, Baro-chan. Sup? You ready to roll? Akadori Noburo. Age 14. Rap, sports and video games, ghost graveyards and hospitals? Noburo Akadori, my best friend. Due to the relationship between our fathers, we'd basically grown up together. So much more than a friend, she actually felt like a sister to me. As such, she was the only person who truly understood me, and with whom I was able to talk about anything and everything. Granted, I'd never even made an attempt to get close to anyone else, but with her at my side I didn't feel like I needed to. I kinda knew myself that I could be somewhat difficult to deal with, so the fact that she always stuck by me no matter what was something I greatly appreciated, which is why I always made sure to be there for her as well, whenever she needed me. Just give me another moment and we can leave. It's cool. No need to hurry. Even though she said that, I couldn't help but put my shoes on as fast as possible. While doing so, Baro-chan kept watching me, flashing the happiest of grins. Huh? What's so funny? Just still surprised you're coming, is all. I see. Well, I promised you. Yes. Thanks again for that. Don't mention it. I have to say though, I'm still surprised you actually want to go there. You know what it's all about and what we're going to do there tonight, right? Yes. But what was I going to do? Ray's giving me them puppy eyes again. Just couldn't say no. I mean, she apparently put a lot of effort into this. Well, I just hope you're not going to regret it once we're there. Nah, it'll be fine. I prepared myself. Nothing can faze me now. Oh? Then I guess I don't have to accompany you after all. What? Wait. You have to come with me. For like, you know, just in case. I will. Don't worry. So how exactly do you prepare your... Hey. Just as I put my shoes on and turned around to get my bag, I caught my mother right in the despicable act of trying to stuff that manifested form of black defamation into it. Without hesitation, I quickly snagged it away from her. Aw, you sure you don't want to take the costume with you? Yes, I'm sure. Bara-chan isn't wearing one either, see? And at first I was actually thinking about wearing a costume, but then I was like, nah, because I had no clue what to pick. Didn't you want to customize yourself, Raiko-chan? Nah. Yeah, would have surprised me anyway. You're just not the type to do that. That said, what's going on with him kid ears? Kid ears? What do you... Wait, what the... She was right. When I carefully patted myself on the head, I could feel them. Fluffy kid ears. Ah, I totally forgot to take off that hairband with the cat ears attached to it. Alright, take good care of my Raiko. Make sure she's having fun, yeah, Noburo-chan? Yes. Hey, wait a sec. Bye-bye. Good night. Have fun. What do you... Before I knew what was going on, Bara-chan and I had been pushed outside by my mother, who instantly slammed the door shut behind us. What she got planned tonight? I quickly turned around, but it was too late. The clicking sound of the lock let me know she wasn't willing to open up again. The mailman's coming over. I aimed my gaze at the translucent window next to the door. Even though all I could see was his silhouette, it wasn't hard to tell she had once again burst into laughter, that insufferable woman. Had she done this so I wouldn't switch the cat ears with my original hairband, which was still lying on my bed? What the heck was that about? Don't ask. Okay, if you say so. What them ears look like super cute. I want some too. You can have these. Nah. On second thought, better not. If I put him on, he's completely going to lose it. With he, Bara-chan was referring to the man who had brought her here and was still standing right behind us, waiting next to his car. The moment we turned around to him, he quickly sprinted towards us, the grin the size of a watermelon slice carved into the lower half of his face. Yo-ho, my beautiful young ladies. Good evening, Mr. Akadori. Hinjin Akadori. Age 41, novelist. Yes, his name was Hinjin Akadori, and much to her dismay, he was Bara-chan's father. Unlike my mother, who I was sure did it on purpose, he probably didn't intend to cause his daughter so much grief. Although I guess that wasn't much consolation to her. Mr. Akadori was the very definition of an overprotective and overly affectionate father. One in whose mind his daughter had never grown up past the age of a toddler, it seemed. His constant barrages of adoration often crossed into rather cringeworthy territory, to the point where even I felt deeply embarrassed, whether I was hit by the occasional stray bullet or not. So how you doing, Raiko-chan? Fine, thank you. That's good to hear. Those kitty ears look totes adorbs, you kids like to say. As always, your adorbsness rivals that of my precious little Noburo-chan. Dad. Well, Raiko-chan, just throw your bag in the back. Hey, that even rhymed. I did as he told me, and after depositing my bag inside the car, thanked him once again for driving us. No problem. I'd do anything for my cutie-wooty little darling daughter and her friends. Dad. Can you please stop that? At least in front of my friends. Oh, don't be embarrassed. Raiko-chan should be used to it by now, huh? Oh, wait, my little sweetie. When he realized Bara-chan was already about to open the car door, Mr. Akadori quickly jumped in front of it to open it himself. Just like a chauffeur, he helped her climb inside. There you go. Hop in, my princess. Oh. After she'd gotten inside, mumbling to herself in frustration, I took my place next to her on the back seat. Mr. Akadori closed the door, walked around the car, and after jumping inside himself, started the engine while winking at us through the rearview mirror. It was no surprise that Bara-chan's mood had suddenly taken a nosedive. In the end, both of us had been punished with somewhat weird and annoying parents. Neither of us was too happy about him taking us to the party. However, since it was held in a resort outside the city and my own father was busy working, we hadn't had much of a choice but to accept Mr. Akadori's offer to drive us. Alright, let's head out on our journey, my little sweethearts. And with that, we drove off into the pitch black night. I know it might already be too late for this, but I want to take this opportunity to properly introduce myself. Raiko Shinpuku. Age 14. Cats, peace and quiet and reading. Ignorance, parties and troublemakers. She does sound boring. My name's Raiko. Raiko Shinpuku. A normal middle schooler who tries to mostly keep to herself and who doesn't really enjoy parties or the like. And I certainly didn't care for something as silly as the Festival of the Dead. Yet here I was on my way to my very first Halloween party. And what a party it was going to be. Given its theme, we expected all kinds of horrors to lie in wait for us. However, neither Bara-chan nor I was prepared for what was actually going to await us. Ominous. It certainly was going to be a Night of the Dead. More ominous. You can now access character profiles in the notebook from the main menu. To open up the main menu, press the escape key or click on the right mouse button. New notebook entries have been added. New diary entries have been added. New character profiles have been added. Nice. Chapter 1. Okay, that was the prologue. Very good. It was already 10 PM as we continued following the mountain road under the black night sky. Richly ornamented with an endless variety of twinkling stars, some slightly bigger and shining more vibrantly than others. It displayed a melancholic full moon at its centre. However, despite this giant white orb hanging above us and bathing everything in its pale ghostly light, I could barely see anything outside the window. Only a black sea of trees and the irregular shapes of the mountains lined up in the distance. And of course the flashing lights of various vehicles passing by at such velocity. They'd already vanished into the darkness behind us the moment I took note of them. Growing tired of counting the numbers of cars rushing past us, I turned back to Bara-chan, who was leaning against my shoulder, yawning. She looked as though she was about to fall asleep any moment, but before I got a chance to ask if she was okay, she quickly rubbed her eyes, righted herself, and smiled at me, as if to say she was perfectly fine. Clearly she was not, but I really couldn't blame her. I would have preferred to lie down in my warm, comfortable bed and had a good night's rest myself, but it was already too late to turn back now. I threw my gaze... So she's 14 going on fucking 60. I threw my gaze back out the window once more, sighing with regret. To think I was actually sitting here on my way to that silly party. I still couldn't believe it. If only it had started a little earlier at least. I was nowhere near as tired as Bara-chan seemed to be, but in just about 2 hours, it was going to be midnight, and Rai probably expected us to stay up way past that. To her, that was the whole point, since having a Halloween party in the dead of night was better for setting the right mood. To me, however, it only served to make it more of a hassle. Oh well, at least tomorrow was Sunday and I could sleep as long as I wanted. The only thing I really had to worry about was whether the others were going to have too much mischief on their minds. Whoa, what the hell? Brain dead jerk. Just because you're driving a big truck doesn't mean the road belongs solely to you, arsehole. Egotistic numbnuts like that really pisses me off. I hope he gets into an accident. Would so serve him right. That's a bit much. Anywho, I think we should be there soon, my little cuddly bears. Oh my god. He's got a bit of a split personality disorder, doesn't he? He's like the cutesy guy or completely psychotic. So, you said it's going to be a Halloween party, huh? We never did anything fancy like that when I was your age. But is it really going to be alright to have a party in the hotel? I mean, won't you disturb the other guests? Dunno, but Rai's dad owns the place and gave her permission, so I guess it'd be alright. I don't think he would have allowed this if it was going to cause trouble for actual paying customers. Rai planned this whole thing quite some time ago, and I'm fairly certain her father made sure not to have any visitors this weekend. Besides, considering it lies rather isolated in the mountains, it's most likely some kind of vacation resort and not an actual hotel. And since there are no major vacations this time of year, it's unlikely for a lot of people to have made reservations. It might even be closed. I see. Guess that'll make sense. So wait a moment. Doesn't that mean you'll have the entire resort to yourselves? That begs the question, will there be any adults around, or is it just you kids? I mean, my little Rose among only teenagers in an isolated hotel far away from home for an entire night? If some alcohol is going to be part of the equation, I don't even want to imagine the possible outcomes. We won't drink any alk, Dad. Rose's dad would never allow that, and we know very well that we're too young for that. Or do you think that we're that irresponsible? That's not what I meant, my honeycomb. I know I can trust you and Raiko-chan. I'm more worried about your classmates. Maybe it'd be better if I stayed overnight as well and forget it. You'd be a good dad and just drive me back home, right? Besides, you really think Rai's dad would just leave her unattended? She's more precious to him than his entire fortune. Of course there'd be adults around to make sure we ain't doing nothing stupid. Of course that was a lie. Baro-chan knew as well as I did that not a single person over the age of 15 was going to be there. Only the two of us and our classmates. However, it was best not to give Mr. Akadori even the slightest excuse to stay with us. Not unless we wanted to experience a true cringe-mare of a night. I don't know. Come on, Dad. You're saying you don't trust me? No. Of course I trust you. It's just, well... When you look through the rearview mirror into Baro-chan's eyes, the blood intensely drained from Mr. Akadori's face and he broke into a cold sweat. His ardent love for his daughter was also his biggest weakness. There was nothing he feared more than upsetting her, which is why he usually treated her like a goddess. And the moment he noticed she was unhappy, tried to appease her. In situations like this, he was willing to do anything at her command, and Baro-chan was fully aware of that. Others would have probably taken advantage of it, but she wasn't that kind of person. Still, every now and then it proved quite useful to hold such power over one's father. I see how it is. Well, in that case, I just won't talk to you ever again. What? But Mousy, you can't do that to me. I'm just worried about you. I don't want anything to happen to you, my little cream puff. Hey, you weren't serious about that, were you? But please don't do this to me. Noburo-chan? Alright. Wow, that was easy. Powerless, all he could do was let out a deep sigh as he realized he had no choice but to resign. I promise I'll drive right back home after I drop you off, alright? And with Baro-chan smiling again, a big wave of relief seemed to wash over her father's face. I just feel kind of sorry for him. That having Mr. Akadori around would have been far too awkward and embarrassing for obvious reasons, so... Anywho, I just remembered. Are you supposed to wear costumes? That's what Ray wanted us to do. I'm too old for that childish nonsense. I love how there's like the car sounds in the background constantly going. It's very immersive. Oh, it's like you to say such a thing, Raiko-chan. I'm sure you sure enjoy acting all grown up, don't you? Rather than acting, I personally want to believe myself to be rather mature for my age. However, I'd long come to terms with the fact that he simply didn't take me seriously, which sadly didn't lessen the blow of such remarks. What about you, my heartache-inducing sweetie pie? You sure you don't want to wear a pink unicorn costume I picked for you? Dear Lord, Dad, no. Pink unicorn costume? Suddenly that hideous cat costume Mum tried to impose on me didn't seem so bad. I told you I ain't gonna wear some kiddie cos like that. Besides, this is a horror-themed party and unicorns ain't scary. Oh, that's what you say now, my kissy poo. But wait until you've read my new book. Probably expected us to inquire about the horror novel he was currently writing, but Baro-chan and I knew better than to open Pandora's box, so we remained silent. Which turned out to be not the wisest idea either, as it resulted in the assumption that we were too scared to hear about his killer unicorn, thus unleashing another volley of devastating remarks about how adorbs we were. Fortunately though, before my pride could receive another critical hit... Oh look, we're already here. Thank God. Amen to that. There were no words to describe how glad I was. That after this somewhat humiliating journey, we finally reached our destination. He's funny. It's quite chilly out here, isn't it? When I hopped outside the car, the cold air struck me like a bolt of lightning, causing my body to vibrate violently. Quite chilly was quite an understatement. The inside of a freezer was a summer paradise compared to this. As my head sunk between my shoulders, my arms automatically slung themselves tightly around my thin body, trying to keep it warm. A well-meant yet utterly futile gesture. If only I could have brought my jacket with me. But thanks to a certain someone who had thrown us out before I was able to grab it, I was now experiencing what it felt like when the blood in your veins slowly begins to freeze. Mr. Akadori was shivering as well, and puffed out tiny steam-like clouds, fogging up his glasses. Other than that, however, he didn't seem too affected by the low temperature. Baro-chan, on the other hand, I could literally see the warmth get sucked out of her cheeks. The cold's icy touch seemed to have slapped her even harder than me. She looked wide awake now. Alright, my little snuggle muffins. Here you go. Snuggle muffins? Mr. Akadori heaved our bags out of the car trunk and handed them over to us. While doing so, he took the chance to recite the usual things parents like to preach to their children in a moment like this. Don't do anything stupid. Don't forget to cool. Don't drink any alcohol. So on and so forth. So much for his "I know I can trust you" just a couple of minutes ago. Anyway, he proposed once again to stay and assured we wouldn't even notice his presence, but Bara-chan only had to give him an annoyed glance, and he quickly dropped the idea. A little disappointed but still smiling, he winked at us one final time before jumping back in his car and leaving the parking area just a moment later. Bye, Mr. Akadori. We waited until the red backlights were swallowed by the darkness, just to make sure he was actually driving home and not secretly trying to stay. Once we confirmed he was gone, Bara-chan and I nodded to each other, turned around and made haste for the resort. Neither of us wanted to spend a second longer than needed out in this cruel cold. We headed towards the dim lights of a pair of old stone lanterns, which guided our way. There were a bunch more of them guarding a long staircase that climbed up a rather steep hill. Located at the top of the resort, an old-fashioned Japanese-style 3-story building surrounded by a dense black forest. Seeing this, I couldn't help but think that it would have been the ideal backdrop for a horror movie. No wonder Rai chose this place, of all places, as the setting for her little party. Following the lantern lights, we rushed past countless eerily shaped trees until we eventually reached the huge wooden front doors of the resort. There's a big sign hanging above them. The fading letters on it read, Miyamoto Mountain Resort. After just a quick glance at it, I slammed my thumb on the small metal button to ring the bell. It didn't take long for the bulky doors to open with a deep wooden groan. Well, we're here. Nothing. A little bewildered, Bara-chan and I stared at the pitch-black entrance before us. There was not the faintest source of visible light inside, nor any sign of anyone to greet us. Slowly we turned our heads and looked at each other dumbfounded. What was going on? Would have expected Rai to jump out at us, or at least Runa to show up and welcome us, but... Wait. Before I was able to wonder about this oddity anymore, I suddenly heard something. Footsteps? Yes, I could hear slow, heavy footsteps echoing from inside. Bara-chan seemed a little nervous and moved closer to me, almost hiding behind my back. We continued gazing into the thick mist of blackness ahead of us, listening closely to the sound of those footsteps. As they drew nearer, I could eventually make out a shadowy silhouette moving toward us. And just a couple of moments later... Oh my god. Rai? That you? What the hell? Rai? Yes, that was undoubtedly Rai. Her blood-covered arms raised high, she continued to stumble toward us, moaning in a deep, rough voice. Bara-chan tried calling out to her a few more times, but it didn't seem like she was listening. When she finally moved her blood-smeared lips to speak, Brains! Brains! Raiko-chan! Noburo-chan! I'm gonna eat your brains! Before I even got a chance to react to this weird statement, Rai had already thrown herself at me, pressing hard against her soft, well-endowed chest that my ability to breathe was temporarily disabled. The moment she finally stopped squeezing my abdominal organs up into my chest, I gasped out for air and watched Bara-chan suffer the same fate as me. Happy Halloween! What you doing, Rai? You trying to kill us? Oops. Realizing she might have gone a little overboard with her passionate greeting, Rai began scratching the back of her head in embarrassment, as Bara-chan and I slowly recovered from our near-death experience. Sorry. Guess I overdid a little there. I'm just so glad you two actually came. To be honest, I was a little worried you wouldn't show up. I mean, when I first asked, you two didn't seem too eager to come, and you never come to any of my other parties, so... Well, it was the first time for everything. And we promised we'd come, so... I'm sure you would have been disappointed if you hadn't shown up, but I sure hope you didn't have to force yourselves. I want everyone to have fun, after all. Well, I still wasn't too thrilled to actually be here, and would rather have returned home, but of course there was no way I could tell her that. I felt a little bad for even thinking that way, but in the end I just preferred being myself, enjoying the peace and quiet. Big parties with lots of people simply weren't my thing. Nevertheless, I had to admit, seeing Rai so incredibly happy right now did make me feel at least a little glad I came. Anyways, what do you guys think about my costume, huh? her bloodstained hand resting on her hips. She spun around, proudly presenting herself to us from every angle. The makeup was pretty well done. Maybe a little too well. Do I look horrifying, or do I look horrifying? Well, all I can say is that you scared the hell out of me. That's good enough then. Anyway, speaking of costumes, Raiko-chan, those ears, they're super cute. Ah, that was right. Those accursed cat ears. They're still stuck on top of my head. I totally forgotten about them until now. I didn't think you were type to wear something like that. I know, right? They do suit her. Indeed. You look so cute that I could literally hug you to death. Isn't that what her mother said? Slowly Rai came closer. Like a lecherous old man, she raised both hands, her fingers eerily moving like spider legs. I suddenly felt threatened, but the moment I tried turning around and running for my life, she slammed me against her chest, cutting off my air supply once more. Gotcha. No getting away from me. I tried wriggling myself free, but to no avail. My frail body was no match for Rai's strong arms. Only when Bara-chan mentioned my face turning to the same lifeless color as her makeup, Rai finally let go, sparing me a catastrophic fate. Oops, sorry. You alright, Raiko-chan? Yes. Apart from feeling like all my bones have been crushed, that was. Black cat ears, huh? It's not really what I meant when I told you guys to dress up Halloween-ishly, but I doubt you're carrying your actual costumes inside your bags and plan to get changed once you're inside, do you? Nah, sorry. We didn't bring any costumes. Aw. Well, I expected as much, but I guess I'll let it slide just this once. Because those ears are so incredibly cute, and I'm super happy you came in the first place. Especially you, Raiko-nyan. Yes, I'm totally gonna call you that from now on. Nyan? Oh god, the cuteness. Come here, Raiko-nyan. Give Mummy Ria a hug. No clue what this nyanical nonsense was about, but I didn't get the time to ponder it. For the third time within a mere 2 minutes, Rai seized me with her arms, and this time she was using such brute strength I literally felt like she was going to hug me to death. I started to feel a little lightheaded and my vision began to fade, but fortunately... Hey, don't you kill her now. Don't worry. I'll be careful not to break her. I want to hug her a million more times tonight, so I can't afford to destroy her yet. So I tried to fill up my flattened lugs with air again. I couldn't help but think, it might have been better if she just destroyed me now. I was already feeling like an abused plush toy, and the prospect of this torture continuing for the rest of the night was, well, not very nice. Miyamoto-san, isn't it about time we let our guests inside? Or are you planning to let them freeze in the caress of the cold night? Oh crap, you're right. Sorry guys. Raiko-nyan's ears were just so distracting I kind of forgot about it. Honestly, Miyamoto-san, as the host you should be more considerate of your guests. Well, that's what you're here for, right? To compensate for your lack of manners. Hey! Speaking of which, I'm ashamed to have forgotten my own. Shinpuku-san, Akadori-san, it's good to see you. With a gentle smile, the girl in the blood-stained kimono bowed elegantly to greet us. Her movements were very precise and refined, just like I'd come to expect from her. She was the exact opposite of Rai. Yo, Runa, sup? Hello. Alrighty, we should head inside now. Don't want you guys to catch a cold, so come on. You can leave your bags over there by the counter. Of course, you didn't need to tell us twice. I'd honestly kind of forgotten about the freezing temperature with all that hugging causing my body to almost go numb. Nevertheless, I was still happy to escape the embrace of the cold night, so without wasting a second longer than needed, Bara-chan and I hopped past our classmates and finally took shelter inside the well-heated mountain resort. After putting my bag down near the counter and exchanging my shoes with a pair of indoor ones provided by the resort, I glanced around the room as the blood in my veins gradually regained an appropriate temperature. The reception was rather small and sparsely decorated with a couple of decorative plants and old-fashioned paintings of rivers and mountains mindlessly slapped onto its walls. What actually grabbed my attention was the number of available lockers. Apparently this place was made to hold a maximum of 50 guests at a time, and for an isolated mountain resort, this is much more than I had anticipated. Once again, we're happy to see you. Welcome to the Miyamoto Mountain Resort. This time both of them bowed to formally welcome us, even though Runa had given Ray a little reminder via an elbow poke. Those two really were like day and night. Alright, this seems like a good time to wrap it up because we are 35 minutes deep. So far so good, I think. There's been no choices or investigations or any of that sort of jazz yet, but I guess we're just setting the scene at the moment. We've only just made it to the hotel after all. So we'll see what happens next. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you in the next one.